Right now, somewhere inside you, a muscle is waiting to misfire. You can't see it. You can't feel it. But it's there. It sits just under your lungs. It's called the diaphragm. It's the muscle that quietly lets you breathe. And every so often, for no obvious reason, it spasms. Air rushes in. Your throat snaps shut. And out comes that tiny, ridiculous sound. Hic. You've had thousands of them in your life. But almost no one stops to ask the strange part. Not why hiccups feel weird, but why your body bothers to make them at all. Because here's the thing. Hiccups don't really help you. They don't aid digestion, they don't clear your lungs, and they don't protect you from anything you can actually name. They are, by every measure scientists have tried, completely useless. And yet your body is built to do them. Babies do them before they're even born. Sometimes for weeks on end inside the womb, and casts lesbolust. So why? Why does a body this finely tuned still come with a built-in glitch that does absolutely nothing for the person it lives in? The truth is genuinely strange, and it might be one of the oldest things about you. Let's start with what's actually happening, because the mechanics of a hiccup are far weirder than the sound it makes. A hiccup begins with a sudden, involuntary contraction of your diaphragm, that dome-shaped muscle under your lungs that pulls air in every time you breathe. Normally, the diaphragm moves smoothly, like a slow, steady piston you never notice for a single second of your waking life. But during a hiccup, it jerks downward without warning. Your lungs pull in a sudden gulp of air you never asked for. Then, about 35 milliseconds later, something even stranger happens. Your vocal cords slam shut. That little flap of tissue at the top of your windpipe, the glottis, snaps closed on the rushing air. And that snap is the sound. The hic isn't really coming from your chest. It's coming from your throat slamming the door on a breath that was already on its way in. Two muscles firing in the wrong order, milliseconds apart, for no apparent reason at all. It's one of the most precisely choreographed mistakes your body knows how to make. And here's where it gets weirder. Hiccups aren't random. They're controlled by a specific neural circuit, a little loop of nerves connecting your brainstem, your diaphragm, and the muscles of your throat. Scientists sometimes call it the hiccup reflex arc. A reflex, like a knee jerk, like a sneeze, like the way your eyes blink when something flies at your face. Which means your brain isn't bugging out when you hiccup. It's running a program, a specific, dedicated, hardwired program. The question is, what was that program ever for? And this is where the science gets honest and a little humble, because nobody is completely sure yet. There are theories, though, and the leading one is genuinely beautiful. Notice what hiccups actually do. They pull air in, they close the airway, they use the same muscles in the same sequence as something else your body still knows how to do. Something a tadpole does. Stay with me. Many amphibians, including frogs in their gill breeding stage, use a remarkably similar motion to push water across their gills. They lower a muscle in their floor, gulp in water, then snap a flap shut so the water flows over the gills instead of into their lungs. The neural pattern that drives it looks suspiciously like the one that drives your hiccups. Same muscles, same timing, same little reflex arc. So, one leading theory is that hiccups are an ancient echo, a leftover circuit from a time, hundreds of millions of years ago, when our distant ancestors were transitioning from water breathing to air breathing. A reflex written for gills, still running in a body that has lungs. Think about that for a second. Every time you hiccup at dinner, you might be running a piece of code older than legs, older than fingers, older than the idea of standing up. But there's another theory, and it's also very good, because hiccups have one more clue hidden inside them. Babies hiccup constantly. Inside the womb, fetuses start hiccuping as early as the second trimester, long before they ever take a real breath of air. Premature babies hiccup more than full-term ones. Newborns spend a surprising chunk of their day at it, much to the entertainment of their parents. And then, slowly, as you grow up, hiccups fade into something rare and faintly annoying, which makes scientists suspect the reflex might do something real for tiny humans, even if it does nothing for adult ones. One idea is that fetal hiccups help babies practice using the diaphragm, a kind of in utero rehearsal for the very first breath they'll need to take the moment they're born. Another idea is that they help newborns burp. The sharp closure of the throat might stop milk from flowing the wrong way, while clearing trapped air from a tiny stomach that's still figuring out how to eat. Both might be right. They're not even mutually exclusive. The reflex could be ancient and useful in infancy, and useless to you, the adult, sitting there hiccuping after one cold drink. 3 different jobs across a few 100 million years, all running on the same little circuit hidden under your ribs. Quick pause, because I genuinely want to know, what's the weirdest thing that's ever given you the hiccups? Spicy food, laughing too hard, that first sip of something fizzy? Drop it in the comments. I'm building a list of triggers, and the strangest ones are always reader submitted. Okay, back to the body. Because if hiccups are just a reflex misfire, the next question is obvious. What actually sets it off? The honest answer is a lot of small irritations to a very long nerve. Your diaphragm is wired up to your brainstem by 2 main nerves, the phrenic nerve and the vagus nerve. And the vagus, especially, is famously long and famously sensitive. It runs from your brain, down through your neck, past your heart, and into your gut. Anything that pokes or stretches or irritates that nerve along the way can, in theory, set off the reflex. Eat too fast and your stomach balloons against the diaphragm. Drink something fizzy and gas pushes upward against the same wall of muscle. Swallow a lot of air while laughing, and the same thing happens from a different direction. Sudden temperature changes, strong emotions, even excitement, all of these can tug on the system enough to trip the wire. In other words, hiccups aren't caused by one thing. They're caused by any small disturbance to a very old, very twitchy circuit. And once that circuit fires, it tends to keep firing for a little while, like a hiccup wants company. Most last a few minutes. Some last hours. A rare few last days. And in extremely rare medical cases, hiccups have been documented to last for years on end, which is less funny and more a sign that something else is going on with the nerves involved. But for almost everyone, almost always, it's just your body's oldest reflex coughing up a tiny useless apology. Which brings us to the trick question. Do any of the famous cures actually work? Hold your breath, drink water upside down, get scared by a friend who's been hiding behind a door. The honest answer is maybe, a little, for some people, some of the time. What these tricks have in common is interesting. They all do one of 2 things. They raise the carbon dioxide level in your blood, or they stimulate the vagus nerve in a different way. Holding your breath builds up CO2, which can quiet the reflex. A cold glass of water or a deep swallow can nudge the vagus nerve into resetting itself. Even a sudden scare floods you with signals that can override the loop entirely. None of these are magic. They just gently reboot a circuit that's stuck in a hiccup loop. Which is why every household has its own weird cure that always works, because almost any distraction big enough to interrupt the reflex will eventually let it stop on its own. And so here's the strange picture you're left with. You're a creature of lungs and language and intricate emotional life, and tucked inside all of that, running quietly under your ribs, is a reflex that might have started in animals that breathed through gills. It survived the move to land. It survived the rise of mammals. It survived every version of you that came before this one. And it still flickers awake when you eat too fast or laugh too hard or drink something cold. Not because you need it anymore, but because evolution very rarely throws old code away. It just leaves it running quietly in the background. Your body is, in a way, a museum of every animal it used to be. And hiccups are one of the oldest exhibits still on display. So the next time you're sitting on the couch, mid-sentence and your chest jolts and a tiny hic escapes you, you'll know. It isn't a glitch. It's a fossil. A reflex that may be more than 370 million years old, still running on you, in the year you're alive, on the couch you're sitting on, in the body you're borrowing for a little while. If that just rewired how you think about your own ribcage, hit the like button, subscribe to Bodyquirk for more weird truths about the body you're living in, and tell me in the comments, what part of yourself do you most want explained next? I read every suggestion, and your weird little quirk might just be the next video. Until then, watch your diaphragm. It remembers a lot more than you do.